is only one perfect solution, but there are clues that will try to trick our team.
Hello there everyone, my name is Crazy Caleb and welcome to Settlers of KTaNE. So this is the way the module looks. We have a series of different hexagons, as well as an anchor at the top left, some dice, some materials over here, and some different what they refer to as settlements, which is the smaller houses over here, and cities, which is the bigger guys right here. That's what we're going to be looking at today, and this module is actually a bit of a rarer one to actually see on any sort of bombs. This is one that has been I wouldn't necessarily say notoriously. It's not been bugged at all. It's just been notoriously not known. It's based off of the game called KTaNE, which is CATAN, not KTaNE, which is why the play on words is very important here. But this game is based off of that, and there's a lot of similar aspects to it. I haven't played this game actually in a couple of years, so I'm not going to go over the ground rules of how it works. But instead today I'm going to teach you how to solve this module. So let's get right into this. So as I just mentioned, the module shows an arrangement of 7 hexagon tiles. It will always look like this, but there will always be a bunch of different resources, and these resources can be represented down here, which we have brick, which is represented by sort of this canyon-like hexagon here, which is present on these 3 tiles. Duplicates can appear, and there might be some cases where one of these resources cannot appear. In this case, we don't have any ores, which is like sort of like a mountain range. Lumber is a forest area. Grain is it's a farm basically, and wool is a plain field. It's nothing much to it. In this case, we don't have one. We only have grain, lumber, and brick. So that's what we're going to be working with here. So now, also in the module are a button with an anchor, a paradise, and display showing the current reserves of each resource. So that's what we have here. So now, each hex around the outside is associated with one of the characters from the serial number, with the first character aligned to the top right hex and moving clockwise. So let's get our serial number first. So we have a Lima Echo 1, Whiskey X-Ray 8, and now what we're essentially going to be doing here is we're going to be assigning these values to each of these hexagons around here. We're trying to figure out what these values are because this is going to be very important later on. So, first things first, I generally tend to like to set up the hexagon here, so let's set it up. Bam, 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 just like that. And essentially what we're going to do is we're going to start from the top right, and we're going to assign each of these characters. So we have Lima, Echo, 1, Whiskey, X-Ray, and 8. We're going around clockwise in clockwise fashion. So now, take each relevant character. If it's a letter, add 9 to its numeric position in the alphabet. So A equals 10, B equals 11, Z equals 35. Basically what it is it's base 36 for those of you who are familiar with it, basically converting into base 10. So let's take a look and let's actually do that. So Lima is a 12 plus a 9 is going to be a 21. Because it's the 12th position in the alphabet, we're adding 9 to it, being 21. Echo is going to be 5 plus 9, which is going to be a 14. 1 is simply going to be 1. Whiskey is going to be a 23 plus a 9 is going to be a 32. X-ray is going to be a 24 plus a 9, which is a 33. And 8 is simply going to be 8. And now what we need to do with these numbers here is we need to convert it to base 6. And the way that I like to simplify how to convert stuff to base 6 is take the highest multiple of 6 that you can get to, and that'll be your first number. So for example, let's take the 21. It's always going to be 2 digits, by the way. It's very important to note down. So what I'd like to do is I like to take the highest multiple of 6 you can get to before going over your number, and then adding the last little bit to it afterwards. So in this case, the highest number from that we can get to in a multiple of 6 before going over 21 would be 18. So in this case, that would be simply a 3 for our first number. And now, the remainder of that, in this case being 21 minus 18, is going to be the difference of 3. So our number for 21 in base 6 is going to be a 3, 3. Just a little bit of an easy way to convert to base 6. It's all about multiples of 6 and then giving the remainder for the second number. That's kind of just the way that I like to visualize it. So yeah, that's the number that we're going to get for this. So now, let's take a look and let's see what we need to do with this afterwards, because I kind of want to make my life a little bit easier. So now what we're going to do is we're going to add the digits together plus another 2. And then that's going to be essentially the number that is going to be assigned here. So what this means is that we're going to be adding these 2 3's together, in this case being 3 and 3, which is going to give us a total of 6. And then we're going to add another 2 to this, which is going to give us a total of 8. And this is going to be the value that is assigned to this hex. So now let's assign the 8 to the hex right there. Okay, and let's do the same thing with the rest of these guys. So 14, the highest multiple of 6 you can get to is a 12, which is a multiple, 2 times 6. And the remainder between 14 and 12 is going to be a remainder of 2. Adding these up will give us a 4, plus another 2 will give us a 6. 14 becomes a 6. Now this one's actually really simple. 1 is just going to be a 0 because there's no 6 times 0 is 0, and we are simply going to be adding 1 to this remainder. In this case, this is going to be a 1 plus 0, which is going to be a, you guessed it, 1. And then we're going to add another 2 to this, which is going to give us a 3. And this is essentially to prevent, basically, because we're going to be using these dice, this is essentially to prevent the possibility of a 1 ever appearing, because of the fact that that's just simply not possible to roll on 2 dice. So, on a pair of dice, rather. So, this is going to be a 3, and that's going to be that. Next up, 32. Now, we can go up to 30, which is going to be 6 times 5. And then the difference between this 32 and 30 is going to be a 2. Simple as that. 5 plus 2 is going to give us a 7, plus another 2 is going to give us a 9. So 32 will become a 9 in this case. And then finally, 33, it's the exact same thing, except it's going to be a 5 and a 3 this time around, because it's only 1 less. We had 5 and 2 for the whiskey, and then X-ray is simply just 1 greater than that, so it's going to be a 5 and 3. So that's going to be an 8, plus a 2 is going to give me a 10. Okay. And then finally for number 8, 8 is going to be a, we can have 6 to it first, and then 8 minus 6 is going to be a 2. So now we're going to add 1 plus 2 is going to give us a 3, and we're going to add now a 5 to it, because we're going to be adding 2, and that's going to give us a total of 5. Okay, now, how do we figure out the center hexagon? To find the number associated with the center hex, add the number of indicators and ports together, take the last digit, and add 2. So we're not going to be converting to base 6 with this time around. So now let's take a look. So add the number of indicators and ports together. So add just 1. Okay. Take the last digit being 1 in this case, and we're going to add 2 to this, which is going to give me a final total of 3. Note that there is the possibility of there being duplicate values popping up within these hexagons. That is completely fine. You don't need to change that. The one number that you need to worry about is if a calculated number is equal to 7, you're going to refer to table 1. And this is essentially going to give you a series of different sevens, of different ways to change the sevens based off of the position of the hex that has that 7. If it's in the center, you'll add 1, and if it's still 7, then why are you looking at this? And then if it happens to be a specific edgework case, but it still manages to actually be 7, for example, if there was no port plates for the right one, that would be, it would just immediately change the value to hex produces at 5. And that's just the way that works. It's an immediate change to hex at 5 instead of hex at 7. Because there is a special rule if you happen to roll the dice at 7, which I will get into in just a moment. So now, what exactly does this do for us? What do these numbers give us? And why is it important that we don't get a dice roll of 7? So now, when that number is rolled on the die, the associated resource will be produced by the hex. So in this case, if we happen to take a look here, not using this example at all, we have a 3 and a 5 on the die right now, and this is going to give us a total of 8. Now, if we take a look on our hexes here, this top right one has a hex value of 8. This means that on this turn, I'm not going to use this as an example, by the way, on this turn, this would produce a resource of grain, and we would be able to collect that depending on our position. So let's take a look at that. So now, what we're going to essentially be doing here is we're going to essentially be trying to build a series of different settlements and different roads and different cities. This is going to be the 3 types of buildings that we're going to be working with here. For each settlement you have placed adjacent to the hex, you will receive one of that resource, and for each city you will receive 2. So that's going to be very important. So now, what we're essentially going to be doing here is we're going to begin by selecting a position for your first settlement, and next put a street next to the next in one of the 3 directions. Both the settlement and street are free of charge. However, later on they will require some costs and based off of your resources that you have here, and that's going to be very important later on. So first things first, where exactly do we place our settlement? So now if we happen to take a look at the hexagons, obviously we have this large circle around each of them, but we also happen to take a look. We have these little roads that will be connecting in between them. So what we can essentially do here, and we also have this little point in between each of these guys here on every single corner. So what we want to do is we want to gain the most resources as possible, because if we happen to place a settlement on the intersection between these 3 points, in this case the 5, the 3, and the center and the center 3, the 5, the 8, the center, and the 3, um, what's going to be happening here is that we have the ability to collect resources from these 3 tiles now. So let's do that. So let's place a settlement here, and let's place a road. Let's go this way. And now, what we've done here is we've successfully placed a settlement and a road in this instance. So now, what we're essentially going to be able to do is we're now going to be able to roll the dice, and we're going to try and gain different materials here. We're going to try and gain different materials, and we're going to get into what we're going to have to do with these materials. So, we've just placed both of our settlement and street that were free of charge, and after that, you may now roll the dice. Rolling the dice before that will incur a strike, and select the dice to roll them. You only need to select one, that's perfectly fine. And then collect all resources you can get by selecting the relevant hex before doing anything else. Very important. So let's roll our dice. And let's see what we get. We get a 7. Now I get to explain the dreaded 7 rule. If the dice roll is a 7 and you have more than 7 resources, you must discard half of your resources rounded down. This rule sucks, but it's just part of the module, and it's just the way that it works. So in this case, what this is referring to is this is referring to the total resources that you have. In this case, we have a 0, 4, 2, 3, 0. And in this instance, we have 4, 3, which is a total of 7, and we have 2 more, which is a 9. So now what we're going to do is we're going to pop out a handy dandy calculator here. So now, let's take a look at our calculator. Now, we do have more than 7 resources because 4 plus 3 plus 2 is going to give us a total of 9. So now what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to get rid of half of our resources. And note, you cannot try and build anything during this roll. It's not going to be, I can try and get away from this. No, you cannot get away from this instance, and it's not worth it. So now what we're going to do is we're going to discard half of our total resources rounded down. So let's divide 2 by 2. And then we're going to round down, so we're going to have to discard 4 of our resources. And what we can do with this, and what we have to do with this, is we're going to select a resource to discard it, which is going to be based off of these icons here. And you win when you reach 5 points. This is going to be the goal of our module here, is we're going to try and get 5 points. So generally what I'd like to do is I try and keep the balance with regards to the modules that are, with the resources that are present on the module and the ones that are not. So in this instance, there is a lot of wheat, and we do actually have a lumber yard present with us. And I kind of want to keep the ores present in case we want to use in case we want to get something else later on. So let's get rid of two lumber and 2 wheat. Let's just do that for now. And now we are good to roll again. So let's continue on. Now let's roll again, and let's see what happens. And we get a 5. Now we've rolled a 5. And what's going to happen here is we are going to be able to collect resources from the relevant hex. In this case, we do have a settlement that is in the intersection and connected to this little lumber area. And now we're able to collect 1 resource because it is a settlement. It's adjacent to the hex, we're able to collect. And just like that, we gain 1 lumber for that. Now, if we happen to press it again for some reason, that would reward us with a strike, unless we live in a city. We will receive 2. That in mind. Now, another thing that's actually really important to note is if you happen to have 2 settlements with each other, that's going to be essentially what you're going to want to do. You're going to want to click twice. If you happen to have, for example, say the center has, say we roll a 3, for example, and there happens to be 2 settlements that are adjacent to it, that means that you can collect 2 from them. It's very important to note the difference between these. So let's continue on, and there is one last thing I would like to state before we move on. There is one last thing that is not mentioned in the manual, but I have made a request to put this in the manual. What's going to be happening here is that if we want to place another settlement later on, what we need to do is we need to make sure that they are separated, that these settlements are separated by 2 roads. So we can't do settlement road, settlement, so on and so forth. No, we can't do that. It has to be a settlement, road, settlement. And those roads have to be connected with each other. That's very important to note down. This rule, I cannot stress enough to you, has gotten a lot of people tripped up, and it's really unfortunate why it's not mentioned in the manual. I believe this is indeed based off of the rules of KTaNE, how that works. But essentially, this is very important to note down. It's not mentioned in the manual, but hopefully it will be by maybe in a few days or something like that. Hopefully by the end of the night would be nice. But it's very important to know that rule. That is one that has probably tripped up people the most, and it's probably the reason why this module is not as well known compared to others. So that's what is important to know. So now let's continue our way through. As it says here, you will start with 0 to 5 resources for each resource type. It's completely random. There is no real way to predict this. Then you may build structures by selecting the appropriate space on the module, which we've already done with the settlement and the road. In this case, the settlement is the intersection point. It's this little dot right here, and the road is going to be this long little sliver right here. If you do not have the necessary resources, you will incur a strike. You may trade. Now, you may trade 3 of one of your resources for one of another by first selecting the resource you want to trade. Then then pressing the anchor button, then selecting the resources you wanted to receive. Okay, so let's do that. So let's say we wanted to trade, for example, 3 lumber for 1 brick. Or, for example, 1 wool. Let's actually do that for 1 wool, because we actually have the possibility of receiving brick in this instance. So now, let's select lumber. Let's select the anchor, and let's select the wool in this case. That's what it's referred to as. And just like that, we lose 3 of our lumber, and we gain 1 wool. And that's going to be one of the things that you have to do in order to account for example, the different costs that it costs it costs to make some of these structures. In this case, for a settlement, it costs 1 brick, 1 lumber, 1 grain, and 1 wool. And for a city, it costs 3 ore and 2 grain. And for a street, it costs 1 brick and 1 lumber. Now, a word of advice, in my opinion, if you want to do any trades or you want to do any building structures and you happen to get resources that are available to do either of those, I would advise you do it immediately. Simply because of the fact that if there is the possibility of that 7 coming in anywhere at any time, which is going to be very annoying and it's not good to do. Especially since you're going to be at least losing like 3 or 4 good resources. So if you want to do something that is going to be relevant to building structures or trading, do it immediately. The second you get it, do it immediately. Otherwise, you will lose your resources later on. It's not worth that risk. And it also just takes longer to do. It's not fun. So let's continue on. And then any other presses will incur a strike and reset the trade procedure. Just keep in mind that you have to do it exactly like that. Let's move on now. So now let's hit the dice again. And another thing I forgot to point out is that each of these settlements and cities are going to be worth points. In this case, I mentioned that we were trying to win when we reached 5 points, but we have a series of different points. So we're currently at 1 point right now because we're given that free settlement for us. That's going to be worth 1 point for every single settlement. Now, if we happen to replace a settlement with a city, this will be worth 2 points. It's essentially just 1 more. Now, for a street, 2 points for the first chain of 5. This is only going to happen once, and this is actually one of the nicest points that you can get if you have the right resources. And I would advise actually going after this. The first chain of 5 for the 2 points. It's very much worth it. So that's going to be a nice point to go after. And generally, there's a couple ways that people tend to do this. You can do, for example, 3 settlements and the 5 streets, just like that. Or you can perhaps do, depending on, of course, whether you have ores or not, which is a bit of a rarer one. You can obviously do cities. You can obviously do 1 city, 1 settlement, and then the streets rule. That's generally the most common cases. I really have not seen anything else as far as just how this module works, and there's actually not much that I actually do with it. So I generally tend to go for the 3 settlements, though. It's just much easier than that. So let's continue on. So now let's roll our dice again. So we just rolled a 6 in this instance. Or excuse me, yeah, that's a 6, and nothing happens in this case because now we're only able to collect from the settlements that are adjacent to a settlement. We're only able to collect the hexes that are adjacent to a settlement. In this case, this 6 is not adjacent to a settlement. It's not the way that works. Even if we had a road here, if we had a road connecting this settlement down to here, that's not how collecting resources works. That's not how that works. So let's continue on. So let's do so we get an 8 with this time around, so we can collect grain here. Okay. This is a 12. We don't have anything with 12. This is an 8. Collecting it from here. Now, I kind of want to trade for grain, because 8 is a really good number that we have. And I kind of want to start getting some... let's think about it. Let's trade up for a... Let's trade up for Brook. Let's do that. And we get 8 again. Speaking of which, lovely. And now, I want to build another settlement, but I also need to build another road first. I need to get that road built, street built, with 1 brick and 1 lumber. We currently need a piece of lumber. 6 doesn't help me. This is an 8. Classic, okay. Now, this is a 7. Now, do we have more than 7 resources? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We don't do anything if we don't have more than 7 resources. It has to be explicitly more than 7. So, let's continue on. We have a 5 here. Perfect. Now what we can do is we can now build another street. So let's build one right here. And just like that, we lose both of our resources right here. And now what I want to build is I want to build another settlement so that we can open up to potentially get more brick and yada yada. So let's move on. Now this is a 7. We don't have more than 7 resources. We're good to move on. This is a 4. We don't have any resources with a 4. Another 7. We don't care. This is a 10. It's not adjacent to a settlement, so next. 11. Nope. 4, nope. 3, yes. Nice. We get some brick here. Perfect. So now we have a 5, we get some wood, and perfect. Now what we can do is we can now select this point, and we can now build ourselves our second settlement. Okay, good deal. And now, if we want to, actually, we could probably go for a trade to get an ore, because we need 3 ore for a city, and we can then get some grain, because we have a lot of options for how we can get grain. So let's continue on. So this is a 7. We don't have more than 7 resources. This is a 2. We don't have any 2s. This is a 7. We don't care. This is a 6. We now have the option to actually gain resources from here. So this is now going to be available to take. So because we have that settlement that is adjacent, we're able to collect. Now 8. 8 we're able to collect here. And now let's trade up. Let's trade up the this wheat for 1 ore. So let's do that. Next up is a 10. We're not adjacent to that. Next up is a 5. We can collect the wood. Perfect. 6. We're able to collect here. 6. We're able to collect here. And now we have the ability to create a city. 3 ore, 2 grain. And now what we can do is we can now create our city. So now we can select either one of these. And I'm actually going to select this one because we need to gain more wood. That's what we need right now. Because of the fact that we're going to be trying to go for, if we're going to be doing this, we're going to have a settlement, we're going to have a city. In this case, that's going to be settlement, city, and this is going to be, and we're going to go for the street rule. That's going to be 1 point, plus 2 points, plus 2 points. That's going to be the 5 that we need right there. That's all we need. So now, let's continue on. So let's actually build a city over here, and we want to build lumber so that we can actually start building streets again. So let's do this. And now, as you can see, it's now replaced with this icon that is a much bigger house, essentially. I believe it's some sort of barn or something like that. But this means that we now have a city. And now, this rule comes into play as well. For each city, you receive 2 with the adjacent hexes. So now, if we actually happen to take a look here, this middle is adjacent to a city, and it's also got an adjacent settlement. This means if we happen to roll a 3, we're going to be collecting 3 brick from this. So let's continue on. So now we have a 10. We don't care about that. We have a 3. And just like that, 1, 2, 3. And we also gain another one from down here. Perfect. Because both of these have a value of 3. That is amazing. And now, let's actually start building roads. The sooner we can build this, the sooner we build the roads, the closer we will be able to be to solve this module here. This is going to be a 6. We collect it from this resource. Okay. 7, we don't have more than 7 resources. That's also a 7. This is a 4. That's a 4. That is an 8. We can collect from here. 1, 2. And let's do a trade. We're focusing on streets at this point. We don't care about grain at all because the only things that care about grain is going to be the city and the settlement. We want to focus on getting lumber and brick. So lumber, let's trade. So let's select the resource, select the anchor, and select the lumber. Okay, and let's build another road. Excuse me. 6. That's going to be selecting right here. That's our resource that we get. This is another 6. Okay, lovely. That is a 7. We do not have more than 7 resources. That is also a 7. That is an 11. 7, 11. Nice. And now we have 5 here. We're going to collect 2 resources. And remember, you collect your resources before doing anything else. Before you do anything else. So let's do 1, 2. And now, if we build this last street, that would give us our chain of 5 and solve the module. There we go. It's a lot of explaining to do, and it's not too hard of a module to understand. It's just there is a lot to go over, and there's a lot of easy misconceptions in this case. Let's go over one more example, though. This module is quite fun once you do it, and I'm going to do this a little bit faster. I do know how to do the conversions in my head. It's a lot easier than you think it is. But essentially, this is all this module wants you to do. It's very, very simple. And honestly, I think it's quite frankly underrated. I think it is a very nice potential solo to do. But it is definitely one of the trickier ones to solo, definitely. So let's take a look. But essentially what you want to do is you want to build settlements in sort of like key areas which will give you the best resources. In this instance, I was able to get 3 different resources, and that's kind of what you want to do. Ooh, okay, good. We have a wide variety of different resources this time around. Let's try and focus. Let's go this way. Let's build our settlement there, and now let's figure out what our values of our hexes are. Now this means that we're likely going to have a city. We're just because there's so many ores present, or resource hexes present, that likely means that we're going to be doing the same path that we just did beforehand. There's going to just be a lot of ores present, and the only thing ores are actually used for are cities, so that's perfect. Now, of course, we can also use ores for trading. That could be very, very important to note down. But let's get our serial number first, and let's see what we have. So we have a 2 Romeo, 3 Foxtrot Juliet 7. So now let's go through this a little bit quicker. So we have 2, that's just 0, 2, and base 6. That's going to be a 4 because we're adding 2 to that as well. 18 plus 9 is going to be a 27. 27 is going to be a 4, 3 because it's going to be a 24 plus the 3. So that's going to be a 7 plus a 2 is going to be a 9. 0, 3, so that's going to be a 5. 6 plus 9 is going to be a 15. 15 is going to be a 2 for the 12 plus 3. 2 plus 3 is going to be 5. That's going to be a 7. Now we'll get back to that in a second. Juliet is going to be a 10 plus a 9, which is going to be 19. And then that's going to be an 18 plus 1. So that's going to be 3 plus 1 is going to be 4. That's going to total out to a 6. And then 7 is going to be 6 plus 1. That's going to be 1 and 1, which is going to be a total of 4. Okay. And now for the middle area, we're going to be adding the number of indicators and ports together. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Plus the 2 is going to be a 7. Okay. Now we actually have a couple cases where we're going to be determining how to change the 7. So now we have the center and the bottom left that are both equal to 7. And I'm actually glad I'm able to demonstrate how this actually works. So now, how to change the 7? We're going to add 1, in this case for the center, which is very simple. So it's just going to be an 8. And then it says, why are you still looking at this? And then for the bottom left, we're going to add the number of battery holders, then subtract the number of indicators. So in this case, we have 1 battery holder, and we have 2 indicators. So we're essentially going to be subtracting 1 from this. We're going to add 1, subtract 2, minus 1. So that's going to be a 6 in this. Okay, perfect. So now we've built our settlements and our road and our street, excuse me. And we've actually determined the values of the hexes, along with some of the values that were actually 7 originally. And now, one other thing that I need to note down is if the calculated range is not between 2 and 12, you're simply going to add or subtract 11 to get into that range. So that's going to be very important to note down. It's just a little bit of a note. It's not too hard to see. And let's get right into this. So let's start rolling our dice here. So we start off with a 9. Now, immediately, we can start generating ore. That's actually really good. Okay, so let's do that. And we get ore. We get a 10, nothing. We get a 4. We can generate lumber here. Brilliant. So let's go back down to our structures and cost here. This is going to be a 9. Perfect. Now, let's actually take a look and let's see what we can do with this. Let's not actually build a city quite yet. We don't have the resources for it, but what we can actually do is if we're going to be getting 9s pretty often, I'm actually going to trade for a wheat here, or a grain rather. So let's do that real quick. And it's also to prevent me from having to essentially lose resources if we happen to roll a 7. So let's do, let's select our resource, select the anchor, and let's trade. Perfect. We're going to be probably getting a lot of ores, and we're going to be building cities, so let's just do that. We have a 6, nothing that's adjacent. We have a 12, nothing. 5, not adjacent. It might look adjacent, but it's not. This is a 10. This is a 5. This is an 8. Okay, so we're going to get brick from this. Fantastic. And now let's actually build a street. Let's get that street going for us. To potentially build a settlement down here. That would be quite nice. So 4, we can get another piece of lumber. Fantastic. And now what we need is we simply just need a brick. That's all we simply need right here. This is going to be a 7. Now, thankfully, we don't have more than 7 resources. We're good to go. So we can simply continue rolling. That's an 8. Okay, we get a brick. Perfect. And now what we can do is we can now generate a settlement right down here. And this does open up the possibility for us to gain some grain. Gain some grain. That's 10 times 5 times fast. This is an 11. This is a 7. We don't have more than 7 resources, thankfully. This is another 7. This is another 7. Another 7. Jesus. It's almost like it wants me to lose resources. So now we're going to get a 9 here. This is going to be an ore. That's a 6. Now 6, we actually can gain some wheat here. Some grain. Whatever. I'll call it whatever I want. We have a 6 here. That's going to be another grain. Okay. Now, if we happen to gain 1 more ore at this point, we are now able to develop a city. That's going to be really good for us. 4 is going to be a lumber. Let's see. That's going to be an 8. That's going to be, ooh, okay, here we go. So now we have 2 settlements surrounding this 8 right here. That means we're going to get 2 pieces of brick from it. 1, 2. Perfect. So now let's continue on. This is going to be another 8. Oh my god, fantastic. Now, with this in mind, we probably should start building something. Let's actually, because we just got a lot of brick here, let's trade a brick for an ore, just to make it quick and easy. So let's do you, and now let's build a city. Let's do that, just real quick, just so we don't happen to lose any resources. We want to be very quick about this. And now we can also build another road here. Just continue our way on. And now all we simply need is we simply need 2 more roads. That's perfect. So let's do it. So we have a 10, we have a 5. 5 we can gain some more from, but it's not really what we're focusing on here. Let's see, we have an 8, so we have, okay, so we're going to be gaining 3 bricks from here. 1, 2, 3, because of the city and the settlement that are adjacent to it. That's a 7, we don't have more than 5 resources. That's a 3, we don't have any 3s, we don't have any 2s. We do have an 8, so that's going to be 1, 2, 3. And at this point, I'm going to trade down to get some lumber here. Just because 4 has been a little bit rare, so let's do you, and let's build another road here. Okay, now let's continue on, and let's get 1 more lumber, and then we can solve this module. That's a 6. 6 gives us some wheat. 9, that gives us some ore we have to collect. So 1, 2 for the city. 6 is going to be a piece of wheat right here. Now let's trade. Let's trade the grain. Excuse me. Let's do you and then you. Okay. And then next up, all we simply need to do is we need to build a street, and it's a solved module. As always, thank you guys for watching. Remember to stay crazy, stay cool, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye bye.